Hi, I'm Lissa Holloway-Attaway, and I'm going to give a little bit of a brief background for the paper that I submitted for the symposium, which was called Playing with Local Heritage, Co-Designing Game Stories for Youth. And the main focus of the research is really the club project, which is one about co-creating a living, playable transmedia story world that's based on the stories, folklore, and the cultural histories of the Skaraborg subregion, which is a part of the Västra Götalands region in Sweden. And in many ways, it's kind of a cultural mapping project that takes into account both tangible and intangible histories, and it blends real and imagined material worlds with fantastical beasts and characters and settings that are all set within a framework for narrative gameplay. And I assume that many of you are not familiar with the Skaraborg region, which is the primary setting, and it's found within the two, or right between the two largest lakes in Sweden in the southwest. And it's one of very rich and diverse histories, some stemming from the Iron and Bronze Age, but that are also connected to special geological histories and formations, tabletop mountains and Viking and Middle Age sites such as burial grounds and mysterious stone structures. And it also draws on a very rich folklore, which is based on the ancient Scandinavian sagas, filled with trolls and mythical beasts and magical creatures. So for us, it's a really inspirational setting to make this kind of fairy tale world, and where we can design playable heritage. So the club project, as I mentioned, is a transmedial storytelling project. And for us, that means it uses traditional media like children's books. To date, there are 14 of them, one for each of the municipalities, except for one within the region, and we're working on that one right now. There are also board games and numerous interactive material museum exhibitions with artifacts that are represented in the story, and that's combined with a mobile AR application that's playable on tablets and on smartphones. And in the AR app, characters from the stories can be brought to life by scanning the figures in the books and collecting them in a database that we call a bestiarium, which is also based on a kind of text from the Middle Ages that combines fictional and real creatures. So even our application has some heritage to it. Other playable digital elements can be discovered on signage and in museums or heritage sites that allow children, youth, and their families to explore these rich histories throughout the Skaraborg region. And the aim of Club is really to strengthen the sub-regional cultural infrastructure where it's set. So it's connected to promoting issues of sustainable growth, innovation, and renewal within experience industries, which includes heritage, but of course also tourism. So that we can present the work to a large body of users who also become participants, because for us, it's also about showing how game technologies and game affordances can be used to support visitor-player experiences with cultural assets and content, but also how this can create a growing cultural network for us with a number of experts, domain experts, and then participants who are primarily young users and their families, some from the region and some without. So it's really about exploring the whole process of development and how we can do that. And the project itself, the Club project, is an acronym for Kira and Lupa's Bestiarium. So Kira and Lupa are then the protagonists in the book and the media series. Kira there on the left is a vampire girl, and Lupa is a werewolf or a shapeshifter boy, and they help support this robust framework narrative for the project that goes across the book series and the AR applications and all the other media involved as they travel across the region. And they're represented then in many different media forms, such as 2D and 3D, depending on where you find them. And they're following an evil circus ringmaster who is himself a forest troll, and he's stolen many secrets from a troll researcher, a human one, by stealing her book, and then he's imprisoned many of the creatures in his traveling show, and he makes them perform as we follow them across the region to create this rich narrative, and mixing the many media forms in the playable AR app, where users, primarily young people and their families, are inspired to follow the stories across the region, allows them to discover and encounter them by scanning materials in the book. And it's a unique way for us then to create these several entry points for people to access the media and to really think through a design process that can support the kind of mythical, magical, but also the affective and engaging media experiences that we want. So for us, it's also then about using a way for us to interact with domain experts, folklorists, historians, archaeologists, geologists, and game designers as we come together to build this really blended landscape, which is really a way of creating a kind of playable fairy tale region. And here's an example of a board game prototype that we have developed. It's actually come further than this right now, but we also do things like create material museum exhibitions. This is one that was to simulate a very large library inside the local city museum, where there are large-sized books and cut-out figures of the characters, and where children who are familiar with the book and media series can come and play with the characters in a scavenger hunt. And they can also, in other activities, engage even in cosplay and in LARPing with the characters. So as they become more familiar with them, they play with them in a number of mixed media kinds of ways to create a really broad form of a game. And we draw a lot in our research on the context of what others, and we also refer to as the post-digital museum, where we now know that technology is expected in museum spaces, and we really wanted to explore how embedded and embodied storytelling can come together to do that and really participate in this idea that's been well referenced in the literature, the museum without walls, that's very audience-centered and goes beyond the physical spaces, and where visitors sort of become users too, where they construct their own meaning and they really inform the kind of content that's in the space. And we do this again through this very rich co-creation process in partnership with many of the cultural stakeholders in the community, so that we can really provide a place for community engagement and dialogue, as well as help research ourselves how the game design and development process can be carried out in this new way. So I'm very happy to talk to you more about the project if you'd like to have questions, and thank you for your attention.